Hello, this is not Cam Anderson from not Blacktail Studio. No, I'm not some internet scammer claiming to make epoxy tables, but in today's video we're going to be making a live edge side table. It may not be the same hefty size as the one that Cam makes, and I was fortunate to avoid epoxy, but still this side table challenged every woodworking bone in my body. As my accent gives away, I'm not exactly from Oregon.
You call that a knife? This is a knife.
That's not a knife, that's a spoon.
All right, you win. I see you've played knifey spoony before.
And I don't have access to great big walnut slabs. At least not ones that agree with my bank account. So for this one, I'm actually using a fairly rare Lebanese cedar slab, which is a hardy timber and is often used in outdoor furniture. This slab luckily came dressed on both faces, so I don't need to be setting up a flattening router jig or anything here, nor do I need to head to an industrial planer or belt sander. Instead, I spent a considerable amount of time removing all of the bark and softwood from the edges of this slab. This can be both time consuming and pleasing if you enjoy trying to pull off the longest piece of bark without breaking it. Cam makes this look easy, and obviously editing makes this look like it takes a handful of minutes. But in truth, removing the bark on this slab took over an hour. I used a mixture of chisels, screwdrivers, and the nylon wheel on my drill driver. I spent so much time using that nylon wheel, I actually drained the entire battery on my drill. So before you embark on a slab project, ask yourself how much you really like removing bark from a dead tree. And for anyone out there who claims you don't need to remove the bark, you absolutely do, and that is a hill I will die on. So far, I haven't actually told you why I'm making this live edge table. I guess you could say I'm at the stage of my woodworking journey where I'm trying things out to see what I like. It becomes easier to do this when someone is paying you to build a table. Like most people who are slowly venturing into the world of selling handmade furniture, this piece was an order from an extended family member. He moved into his own place with his fiancée and needed a side table. I'm sure you're thinking that this looks way too big to be a side table, and you'd be right, which is why I ended up slicing it in half. I'm yet to get my hands on a track saw, so a straight edge jig and my circular saw does the job here. This point is where I began to question my life choices. See, the best part of this slab was actually the one with the most cracks in it, and all of these tiny little surface cracks needed to be filled. One of the things woodworking is teaching me is how the small, often monotonous jobs and details are often what make or break a project. Cut something an inch too big, well, you can just trim it down a little. But cut that half lap 3mm too wide and your entire joint won't seat properly, leading to a lot of slop and possibly undermining the joint strength. Or, in this case, were I to leave these cracks open, it would provide a path for moisture to seep into and likely blow the table apart over time. Or I would end up with some weird splotching when it came to finish time, as the finish would seep into the cracks. So after what genuinely seemed like an entire day of filling cracks, I could finally get to sanding. Talk about monotonous. All the little tips and tricks I've been picking up in other videos and from those that people leave in the comments, which I'm more than open to, so drop a comment with a woodworking tip that you like, are really starting to pay off. My sanding finishes have become better and faster, not only due to repetition and practice, but because I've upgraded my sandpaper and found an adapter for my shop vac. I've greatly reduced my sanding time as the better sandpaper provides a better abrasive surface, while the dust collection prevents the dust particles from filling those tiny gaps and slowing down your sanding. Once I finished sanding to 120, I water popped the table before sanding again at 120. Then I went up to 180 and water popped again. This Lebanese cedar smells beautiful and has some pretty figure in it, which the water popping brought out nicely. As my intro suggested, I am a fan of Cam at Blacktail Studio. Take or leave the epoxy if you want, but his videos are entertaining, and as a fellow woodworker with no formal training, he does have some good tips. Like his sanding glove, which I knocked together once I got sick of hand sanding the edges. It is one of the simplest upgrades you can do for sanding, and your hands will thank you for it. Once I was happy with the surface and it seemed nice and smooth, it was time to prepare for finish. I am of course doing the usual YouTuber thing of prepping this with some Rubio Monocoat raw wood cleaner. I still have no idea between the difference of mineral spirits in this stuff, but Rubio is expensive.
$900 he does to buy us!
So I prefer not to risk destroying this table or wasting my finish. Big surprise here, I'm adding Rubio Pure to this table. Just troweling it on, buffing it in, then wiping it off. I actually have a car buffer, but with tables this small, the buffer is just overkill, and I found even if I've got some of those Rockler bench cookies underneath, it almost throws the table around. Once I worked it in and wiped off the excess, I let it cure for about a week. This table is mostly going to be used for drinks, so I'm adding a ceramic top coat. Sorry Cam, but I ain't paying for N3 Nano plus shipping to Down Under. So my local suppliers, Hamaroo, will have to do. I'm being fair dinkum here. This is not sponsored, but I get a lot of my supplies from Hamaroo, and this ceramic top coat has been amazing. It's very easy to apply, very similar to N3 Nano, although it's a single application finish. It doesn't require the two different types of finishes, and so far it's been pretty damn awesome. The only thing I would like is for them to include the instructions in the box rather than a QR code for me to read them online, mainly because I use the same phone for recording and for looking stuff up. Once the tabletop was done, it was time to add the base, and obviously saved myself a lot of time here because, well, my client, he just wanted a metal base. No extra joinery needed for this one. I'm going with a simple C-shaped table base here. I pre-drilled the holes using my T-square as a guide to keep the holes straight. I've done this once before without any guide, and well, let's just say I had to patch a bunch of holes and then find a way to drill them straight in. I do actually have a Miles Craft drill guide now, so this is no longer my very rudimentary solution. I epoxied in the inserts before securing the base, and there you have it, a live edge side table without any epoxy. I bet you're wondering what I did with the other half of the table. Well, that's actually also become a side table, and it's living in my office where I'm recording this voiceover, because I wanted a side table when watching TV. And that ceramic top coat that I mentioned, well, it's survived both a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old spilling drinks and food on it so far. Stick around for next week when I use woodworking to try and save the bees.